have a very important topic that I want to discuss. I haven't really seen this mentioned anywhere else, and it is of crucial importance with the developments that we are seeing in consciousness studies. Specifically, I want to get this point across. Consciousness is not ultimate reality. I'm going to explain what this means throughout this video, but I need to make this point because I am not seeing it emphasized by anybody, and it really should be clarified what it is we are talking about when we say consciousness. Now, the narratives that we have historically seen involve two different domains. First is science, which is an attempt to explain things through the material or through the empirical, kind of like the reductive forms of analysis that you will see in physics, mathematics, and many different branches of science. On the other side, we have seen more of what we might call spiritual traditions. Okay? This is not necessarily scientific in the sense of being reductive. It's more so about a holistic, collective understanding of information. This recent upsurge of consciousness studies and the integration of consciousness into science involves a holistic view of information, as well as trying to take that holistic information and putting it into scientific domains. Now, there's a number of challenges here because what we are seeing, and there's many different types of consciousness studies that we could look into. I'm not going to name any specific names, but I'm sure you can think of some just Googling or YouTubing consciousness, or consciousness being fundamental reality. You will find many different speakers, many different scientists, philosophers, whoever it is, but they're all digging at the same kind of point, which is that materialism has failed. Science can't show everything through the lens of physical study, and therefore we have to turn to consciousness as a way to fully explain what it is that ultimate reality is. There's a number of nuances to make here. The first is that it is still unknown to what extent matter and consciousness function as forms of conventional and/or objective reality. To clarify this, we don't know for sure yet whether matter is an objective reality and consciousness arises from it, or consciousness is an objective reality and matter arises from it, or consciousness and matter are both fundamental objective realities and they interplay in some fashion that we don't understand. We could probably talk for hours here about different philosophical approaches and views. That is not what I want to go into here. What I want to go into is that this notion of understanding consciousness as ultimate reality and using that as a way to alleviate psychological suffering is not going to work. It's not going to work for the exact same reason that believing physical sciences or materialism to be ultimate reality fails as well. It's not going to work because all of these arise from views, from perspectives, from philosophies, from human ways of thinking. When we take our human ways of thinking, which I have gone over in multiple videos, my book covers this ad nauseum as well. When we take human thinking, which we know is flawed and limited, and we try to apply that to positively explain ultimate reality, we are going to fail. And we are not only going to be misguided, we are also going to fall into a form of delusion. And it's really sad to see, but this is what is going on for a lot of people. Everything is consciousness. Everything is just a fake appearance within consciousness. When you buy into that belief, exactly as I just said it, it leads to psychological problems. It leads to psychological suffering because you are attaching to a view. Now, there's a difference between believing what I just said at face value and understanding that what I am talking about is a pointer for reality that is deeper than what we can perceive. That is the critical nuance for this video, and it applies not only to consciousness, but also to any kind of view or perspective. If you can understand this point I am making, you have done a significant achievement. You have really made something important in terms of a discovery for what it is that hinders what you need or what you need to let go of for awakening. Because all of these things are views. I want to emphasize this point many different times throughout this video because it is absolutely critical. Holding on to any kind of view is not going to lead to freedom from psychological suffering, because views are exactly what creates psychological suffering. You are taking something, reducing it to a view, and then buying into that reduced product that your mind has created and holding on to it as if it is an exact replica or an exact depiction of what the original phenomena was. This is not the case at all. It appears that way because that's the way our minds work, but it is not the case at all. When you go through videos or you listen to people and they're trying to defend their views, especially against other types of views, perhaps a debate on materialism versus idealism, reductionism, holism, whatever it is, you will see that they're arguing back and forth. But in terms of the actual phenomena that they are talking about, that remains completely different. We're now talking about intellectualized positions as opposed to actual reality. I hope this distinction makes sense. Can you see how when you just take a second and look around you, that is completely different from what you describe in words to somebody a few hours later? If that distinction makes sense to you, then you can see how what you experientially get is different from what you linguistically tell somebody. This is exactly what is going on when people are describing consciousness. Now, the original phenomena, and I'm using the term ultimate reality because it's relatively dogma-free, but also because I say this in every video I can, ultimate reality is also a placeholder term. Placeholder term. It is just a cluster of words. I say it with the intention that you should know I am pointing to a phenomena or the basis of reality. I have to use words here. There's no way to avoid that. So whatever words I use, you have to realize that for yourself. It cannot be put into words, but the words can at least point you in the right direction. This is the crucial distinction, okay? Consciousness, when we say consciousness, we are pointing to a deeper type of reality. If you understand this, you will not buy into the types of views that people intellectualize and argue. And when you see that, you understand, oh, okay, this is what the person is pointing towards. What they are pointing towards has to be realized, not known, but realized by myself. If you can understand that and truly comprehend it and put it into practice for yourself, then you've taken away what needs to be understood from this video. If you are still attached to this view, like for example, there are some proponents of a specific type, I believe it's called analytic idealism, and when you really listen, it's a series of argued, intellectualized points. They may be pointing to certain phenomena, but when you are listening to those arguments and what they have bought into, you can see that it's an intellectualized position. Those intellectualized positions are not going to lead to the end of psychological suffering. Instead, they're going to promote it by means of constantly defending these reduced views and perspectives on things. So again, when we're talking about real practice and truly realizing what we're talking about here, not just knowing it through an intellectual basis, you are going to reach a point where all these different views and all these different perspectives are trivial enough to where there's there's a bit of humor when you listen to it. There's a bit of humor because you understand what people are talking about is a reduced, incomplete view of what truly is. Unfortunately, most people don't see this distinction, and that is why I'm making this video. Going around and saying consciousness is ultimate reality is a thought. It is a series of words. It is a view, a perspective, a function of the mind. It is a way of seeing things through conventional reality. Conventional reality is impermanent. Do you see that distinction? I really hope this makes sense, because until you realize that these are just pointers, it's kind of like seeing a sign on the road for the Grand Canyon and then taking that sign as being the Grand Canyon itself. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? The Grand Canyon sign is pointing towards the real thing. Thing is not the right word to use here either, but I'm not going to keep cutting into the limits of words in terms of what I'm trying to convey here. But you need to understand that these are all pointers. Not only are they pointers, they're also incorrect in certain perspectives because of the claims that are being made. We don't know for sure. Current scientific literature, current human understanding, we don't know for sure to what extent consciousness is fundamental, matter is fundamental, and how the two interplay. People may claim these things, but when you take a hard look at the data that's not only available in science, but also from your own experience, first and third person, you will see that the answers remain incomplete, at least in an intellectual sense. Now, in terms of what you realize for yourself from ultimate reality, you realize that this distinction is part of the problem itself, right? We're looking at a dualistic breakdown of what is right in front of us. This is exactly what I've been talking about for this entire video. Consciousness this, material that. You are splitting something that is not truly split. This split is within your own mind. You are buying into something that your mind is telling you to be. It's the exact same argument as good and bad. Is there really good and bad, or are these constructions of your mind? This is where letting go of views really helps to just see things as they are. When you can see things as they are and let go of these notions that consciousness is fundamental or materialism is fundamental, you just see things as they are. When you see things as they are, and your mind is not clouding or poisoning what it is that's going on and not applying a perception, that is where you want to be. Because without those constructs that lead to views, perceptions, intellectualized beliefs and arguments, when you take all those things away, you're also taking away the roots that cause psychological suffering. All of these things are incorrect knowledges in terms of finding the end to psychological suffering. I really hope this point makes sense, because until you can understand and truly realize this point for yourself, you are going to be caught in views. When you're caught in views, you are going to be stuck within your own mind. You're going to be stuck within conventional reality. Now again, I'm not saying that these arguments are useless. I'm not saying that these philosophical positions are useless. All I am speaking about is how to find an end to psychological suffering. If your goal is to find an end to psychological suffering, you have to be able to let go of all of these views. Again, that doesn't mean they're useless. It just means that for this specific goal, we have to be able to see past views. We have to be able to see past the arguments that consciousness is fundamental or materialism is fundamental. Ultimate reality does not fall into a simple description. By the time you have described it, you have reduced ultimate reality into a conventional reality. So you have to be able to let go of conventional reality, objective reality, all these different notions. You have to be able to completely and truly let go of attachment to these views because they cloud your perspective of things. Once you have done this, then you are at the right place you need to be to find an end to psychological suffering by means of realizing ultimate reality. Because if you cannot do this, you are going to be clouded by what your mind paints in front of you. I know I've made the same point here several times. I hope this video helps, and I hope this video lets people see that there's much more going on than what the mind says.